Come on, baby. Yeah. Boom. Hey folks, back with another little video. This time we're looking at the Darksword Armory Oslo Viking sword. I've done a video on this one a little while ago, not that long ago as the other swords I've been reviewing. This one's about 2019, I believe. It is my most recent purchase up until this sword buying blitz that I'm going through. I wanted a Viking sword because Newfoundland, where I live, has a rich Viking heritage. Newfoundland is known as Vinland in the Vinland sagas, Leif Erikson sagas. I won't get too much in depth about it. I will leave a link though in the description to the actual audio or ebook of the Vinland sagas detailing Leif Erikson's exploits across the Atlantic to Lansom Meadows, Newfoundland. If you go to Lansom Meadows, there is a Viking establishment up there. Interesting story. So Newfoundland has a rich heritage tied to the Vikings. As well, being a Canadian, Canada has a very good sword company in Darksword Armory in Saint Laurent, Quebec. So I wanted to combine the two things, so I bought a Darksword Armory Oslo Viking sword. I bought the Oslo out of the different swords that they make. Again, just on aesthetics, just thought it looked very cool. Had a very beautiful looking hilt, which we will take a look at. Before we do though, it's easier to look at the hilt because these two cheeks of the scabbard come right up over top of the hilt. So let's do it a little backwards. Let's have a look at the actual scabbard first. I paid an extra undetermined amount of money, I can't remember, to get the scabbard. Their leather work is stunning. Brown, thick, heavy brown leather with a wood core, with an integrated laced sword belt, which I saw a picture, I think on Cult of Athena, where they had it wrapped around. I was like, I can do better than that. So I wrapped it around in a nice crisscross pattern here. Really adds to it. I think it looks beautiful. I'm never going to use the scabbard on my belt. I'm pretty sure that'll get you arrested in Canada. A nice polished chape on the end of it. And again, like I said, two big cheeks that go up and hold the sword in. No retention. I'm not going to flip it over because it'll fall out. But really cool. Beautiful scabbard. And again, this sword does not want to display very good. It's such a broad, thin blade. It just wants to fall over, so I'm going to hold it down here the entire time. But let's have a look at the friendly end of the sword. This hilt is gorgeous. It has a matching brown leather that matches the scabbard. It has I believe a 5-lobe pommel. Beautifully, expertly engraved here. Gorgeous. A darkened bronze. Also on the crossguard. Beautifully engraved all the way around here. Whoa, please don't fall over. Engraved up and underneath. And of course, on the butt end of the blade here, we have the Darksword Armory emblem embossed into the blade. We have a very wide fuller that runs almost to the end. The fuller runs quite a ways up the sword, practically to the tip. The fuller ends right here, so almost to the very tip of the sword we have a fuller. And I figure we should throw in some specs while we have the sword out. From the hilt, almost exactly 31 inches. And it's that in cutting length because the sword is sharp all the way to the hilt. Also, we should also mention that the handle is just under 4 3/4 inches long, which leaves us a cutting length of 3 3/4 inches. 3 3/4 inches It's pretty much exactly the, the width of my palm. I say this because either Vikings had very small hands or they enjoyed this pommel driving into their palms. I'm not sure, but it really does kind of, it doesn't leave you a lot of room to grip it. And when you swing it, you kind of get the pommel digging in. So there's that. It's not the most comfortable sword in the world to swing. Again, it's a broad, very wide across this dimension right here. It's very wide. It's also quite a thick, stout, heavy blade. It's not the most nimble sword in my collection, to say the least. Also, like some of these swords, I did partake in Darksword Armory's factory sharpening service. Actually, less than that. It was a pretty miserable experience. Their sharpening service was not very good. But, however, like most of my swords, I remedied their poor sharpening service by taking this thing first to a belt sander, then to a work sharp Ken onion to appleseed the edge, and finally I refined the cutting section of the sword on my Lansky to get a nice screaming sharp angle on it. And we should also mention Darksword Armory lists this sword as being made of 5160 high carbon steel, and it lists for $1,128 Canadian. Not a cheap sword. I didn't pay that for it. I believe it was about $800 when I bought it, so it was never a cheap sword. So. And I'm just going to put it back in the scabbard so I can go hands-free again. Because as we do with all of our swords in these reviews, we took it out to the backyard. I did some heavy targets with this sword. Some of the heaviest targets I've done in any of my cutting sessions because it's a heavy, badass sword. So I'm going to bring you out to the backyard and we'll do a cutting session with the Darksword Armory Oslo Viking sword right now. This time it's the Darksword Armory Oslo Viking sword. Fill it back up and give it another try. Try the other side here. Come on, baby. Yeah. Boom. And there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. That was a pretty beastly session with some big ass targets. They all didn't go very well. And you can see it leaves a little bit of a jagged edge on some of the paper cups and stuff. Not the best cutter in my collection, but Viking swords were meant to be somewhere between a sword and a bludgeon weapon. Meant to come down on hard shields and other weapons and just madness and berserkers and all that good stuff. So I think it's a fair representation of what a Viking sword is. Also a very beautiful example of what a Darksword Armory sword can be. One of the most beautiful swords in my collection. Has a place of prestige on my wall. And there you go. That is a short rundown of the Darksword Armory Oslo Viking sword. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, folks, thanks for watching. Bye.